Hi everyone, it's Tammy from Willow and Violet, and I had a little spontaneous trip to the thrift store last night. I went to a Goodwill location that I've never been to before. With no real agenda, I just wanted to pop in, check it out. Let me show you what I found because it was a great haul. First of all, I found this watercolor paper. It is extremely premium weight. It's 140-pound weight, and it has great texture, very thick. So this will be amazing for crafting projects. It was a little on the pricey side, honestly, for Goodwill. It's 2 pads of 32 sheets, and it was $8.99. Yeah. And then I found two. Oh, the lights are really shining on this. I got two sets of this graph paper. It is 50 sheets. It's a little thin. Obviously, it's very bright white, which isn't going to work for most of my uses. So, of course, I took some and tea dyed it and grunged it up with some coffee, and I love it. It's very thin, but I love the texture. We love great paper, and this was $1.99 for 2 packages. So $1.99 for 100 sheets. It's like 2 cents a sheet. So that's awesome. The next thing I got, which I don't really need, but I couldn't pass it up, is this set of crafting scissors. They are called Scribbler's Sassy Scissors Collection. I'm thinking from the graphics on this cover that they're pretty old. They certainly had been stored in somebody's attic or basement because they were quite dusty. The package was a bit dusty. I've wiped it down. So I have really good pairs of pinking shears and scalloped scissors, but for $5.99, I was more than willing to give these a try and add a few more textures to my collection. So there's this one. I don't know what we would call it. It's a tiny bit like an overcast stitch that you might find on a sewing machine. So that's fun. There's a pinking shears. There's this design, sort of a fancy edge design. You know, they work pretty well. They're quite small for my hands, but that's fine. Just for edging some papers, I think they'd be great. This is sort of a baby scallop, sort of a shallow scallop. You can see it sort of crushed a little bit on this side. Like I said, they work okay, and they'll be more than good enough for my purposes. There's a wave pattern here. That's pretty fun. And then there is a tighter wave here, just a smaller one. This one didn't work very well last night when I tested it. It's a little dull in one spot. Might be able to sharpen that up. But again, I like to have a lot of textures on the edges of my journal pages. So adding a few more options to my arsenal is welcome. So there, I did all of them except for the pinking shears. I think we all know what pinking shears look like. But when it comes to doing like journals and whatnot, I love to have lots of different edge styles. So I could definitely add those scissors to my repertoire. Next up on the docket is 3 huge rolls of floral wallpaper. And the second I saw it, I knew I had to have it because it's got a very antique sort of look to the pattern. And it was $7.99 for these 3 large rolls. The rolls are about 20 inches by, here we go, 20.3 inches by 33 feet, 32.8 feet of this wallpaper. I opened it up and I was a little disappointed because I couldn't tell through the plastic wrap that it's actually got quite a sheen to it. It's almost like pearlescent, but it's grown on me. It's grown on me. I've gotten over the shock and I think I love it. So imagine this in journals. It could even be a journal cover. I could cut out some of these flowers for small die cuts, fussy cut decorations. I think this is going to be great. I'm going to put this to wonderful use. All right, next I want to show you one of the things I'm most excited by, and it would be something I would normally pass right by, and it is this book, the Complete French Class Book. Doesn't sound all that promising as far as junk journaling at first glance. The book selection at the Goodwill I went to is usually when I go to a Goodwill, I'm looking for mostly older books, or I'm looking for books that have illustrations that aren't glossy. So I'm surprised that I actually even reached out and picked this up, but I thought, oh, it's in French. Maybe it'll have some interesting pages. And boy, was I right. Because what this actually is a modern reproduction or reprint of an 1873 French course. 1873. I think it was reprinted in like 2008, 2004. Anyway, you can tell by looking at it that it's got this beautiful old typeface throughout. It's got these wonderfully interesting pages. All of these title pages are amazing. I love them. And there's a lot of them in the book, so lots to choose from. There are, the print is slightly imperfect, even though it's very easy to read. The pages have a lot of sort of soothing columns, columnar formatting throughout the front. It's really gorgeous. And then I don't know if you're into books and using book pages and junk journaling, you'll probably feel the same. And then towards the back of the book, there are more full pages of text. So I am very excited. Obviously, the one thing that's holding us back on this being a perfect French book is it's not old. It's a reproduction, so it's modern. The pages are very bright white. So of course, I immediately went about tea dyeing, and I think they turned out beautifully. So I will be using these in many, many projects to come. They took to the tea very nicely. They dried relatively quickly. I'm very pleased. And when I looked into the history or the purpose of this book a bit more, it says on the back that it is in the public domain. It's over 140 something years old, so that's obviously the case. And it is freely to distribute, as no entity or corporate entity has a copyright on this body of work. So that said, once I tea dye some more of these pages, pick up some of the best ones, I'm going to be scanning them and maybe roughing them up a bit more, doing some tears, roughing the edges, doing some more coffee splatter type looks, and then I'm going to scan them, and they will be amongst my arsenal forever. So I'm thrilled with this find. So wonderful, wonderful. Next up, this is probably the most exciting thing that I've found. And it's another thing that I would normally pass right up. And it's called the Garden Color Guide. And I might have to move you back in order to turn these pages. Hold, please. All right. So this is another thing that I would normally pass on by because I don't necessarily like these bright, vibrant colors or glossy paper in journals. I know a lot of people make really beautiful journals with that style, and eventually I might get more comfortable with that style, but it's not something I gravitate to. But I did pick it up because it was such a sizable book. I thought there might be some illustrations in it, and there are, not many, but let me show you what I really found that I'm so excited about. And we're going to do some crafting with the elements I'm about to show you. So there's obviously lots of these beautiful full color photos, a lot of little photos that can be cut out and put in journals. And as I got to the back, I noticed that there were several of these flip out pages, and behind each flip out page there is an illustration. So imagine cutting this even like in half and having this as a flip out in the journal. That would be awesome. It could even put a pocket on the front, and you could even cover the top pages so you could have this into 2 different flip outs. And there's about, I think there's 8 of them. So ready-made flip outs to go into your journals and highlight these beautiful illustrations. Wonderful, wonderful. So I was already sold on that. But then I got to this section and I realized, because this book is all about planning your garden and color coordinating your garden, there are all of these individual cards bound into the book of all these different types of flowers. There are about 250 of them, and there's all different types of flowers. So, you know, the point of the book is you can flip through and you're like, oh, I'll plant that next to that, next to that. Oh, I know that's Dusty Miller. And so, oh, beautiful, my garden will be fantastic. That is the gist of this book, right? But of course, what I'm going to be doing is taking these out and making them into tags. There's also one more section with more greenery. Like the previous section was mostly flowers, and I think these are mostly maybe shrubs. So yeah, I'm could not be more thrilled. I immediately snatched this book right up. And let me show you what I have in mind for using these 250 something cards of gorgeous flowers. So last night I took 3 cards that I found in the book, and I tried 3 different methods to sort of grunge up or knock down the color of those full color pictures. So this one is covered in sewing paper. You can see the line here. I've doubled up the sewing paper in a few sections for an extra textural look. This one is just white tissue paper, and you can see this one, the sewing paper shifted the color. It brought out a lot of the greens that were in this original image. This white paper gives it a really sort of opaque finish, which I love. I did this one with Mod Podge above and below. This one was just glue underneath, not on top. Okay, so that's gorgeous, love that. And then on this one, I just scuffed it using an emery board. So I'm going to ink this up a little bit and make this look a little grungy, dirty, and distressed. So let's get into making 3 tags from these cards. So let's start with the sewing paper one. I'm going to endeavor to use the wallpaper as a backing on this. And I think I'm going to try to get in this section, and it goes this way. There we go. So I'm going to glue it down. Well, first I'm going to leave it on the roll. I think it's going to be a little easier at first. Let me see if we're all right. Stop there. Okay. Maybe I'll just cut this section out. Okay, let's try this. I mean, I've got 3 rolls of this wallpaper. If I make a mistake, there's more where it came from, right? This wallpaper is pre-pasted. At some point, I'm going to need to experiment with how I can craft or maybe adhere it to things using the pre-paste. I don't know if that works at all, but we'll give it a try. I want to get this flower onto the back, so I'm going to put it right about there. Get my glue. Put that down. All right, let's get some glue. And I did scuff up the back of this tag just really lightly. I think art glitter glue would have no problem with this glossy paper whatsoever. but since I had the emery board out, I just glued it up, scuffed it up just a little bit more. All right, let's see if we are in about the right spot again for that chrysanthemum type of. All right, let's see how we did. I think we did pretty well. All right, I'm going to cut it out. It's got such a nice texture to it. It is quite thick. It's a little bit, you know, I think it's probably got a vinyl component to it. I'm going to smush that glue out a little bit. I am loving how this is looking. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, let's get this cut down. I've raved about them before, but these Tim Holtz scissors are my absolute favorite. There are links to some things you might see in this video in the description. There are links to Amazon. Those are affiliate links, meaning that I earn a small commission at no extra charge to you if you choose to check out some of those links. All right. I might also decorate the bottom of this. You can see where some of the lines of the sewing paper are. I tried to find a big blank spot, but it is what it is. We can also decorate right over the top of it. All right. I think after I do this, I might actually sew it as well. All right, let's take a look. Oh, I think that looks great. The glue is bubbled a bit, and I'm wondering if that's because the glue is reacting with the paste. That is something I'm going to have to investigate further. You can see it's a little bit bubbly. So I'll look into that, but I don't hate it. Interesting, interesting. Okay. Let's take a look. I want to see what we have left in this roll of wallpaper. And I want to make, oh, that's pretty. That's really pretty. So I'm going to make that into a tiny pocket. All right, let's do it. Just going to take a pencil and make a little mark. Great. I'm going to cut this down to about the same size because, like I said, I'm going to sew an edge around it. So I'm just going to make this a little pocket. Is that straight? It is not. Let's get the cutter out and straighten this up just a tiny bit. The Small Fiskars little guillotine style cutter is perfect for working on smaller elements, especially when you just want to sort of square up the edges, which I'm always feel a compulsion to do. There we go. All right. We're going to make that into a pocket. I'm going to ink up the edges with the always classic vintage photo. Where's the dauber? There we go. Great. All right. Oh, it actually takes ink pretty nicely. I wonder if it's going to wipe. No, it doesn't actually wipe right off. So that's nice to know as we get to know this wallpaper. I've never worked with wallpaper before. I'm sure some people who might be watching have used it plenty. It's pretty common to use in the junk journaling world. I think I'm going to fancy this up a bit and give it a thumb notch. I might also round the corners. There we go. And where's my corner rounder? All right, corner rounder. All right, let's get there and there. Great. Looks like some of that bubbling has gone down a little bit. It might be salvageable. All right, let's glue this down. And now we have a pocket. And great. I like that. Let's see if I have something we can tuck in there just for visual effect. Photo. It's a pocket. You can hear my chihuahua barking, as chihuahuas are wont to do. All right. I think the wallpaper is definitely going to be a learning process. I'm going to, after we finish making these 3 tags, I'm going to sew this. I might add some lace on it to give it a little bit more interest. I was also thinking about putting just a little piece of, I have this sort of faux cellophane tape that I've made. I like to decorate the edge with these teeny tiny pinking shears to make it look like it's real tape. I was thinking I might just put a piece here just for some interest. Like I said, I'm going to sew this. I might add some lace and a little something else, but that is idea 1 with the sewing paper over that bright photo. All right, let's clear our space and look at option 2. Okay, tag number 2. Let's take a look at the one that was covered with white, plain white tissue paper. Like I said, I just covered it with white tissue paper with Mod Podge, a layer underneath and a layer on top. And what we are going to do with this one is make a trifold with tea dye paper. So it will be sort of a trifold journaling space. And that's quite easy. We just take our tea stain paper and fold it at about the width of the tag. I think that will work. Maybe a tiny bit smaller. Tiny bit smaller. Great. And then we just do one more fold about that size. Get it straightened out. And about that size. Excellent, excellent. Oops, a little crooked. Straighten it out. Get our bone folder and smooth that out a little. And the next thing we will do, and whichever side is more straight and square. All right. Nice. All right, before I glue this down and cut it down, I want to attach a loop to the top. And I'm going to use this little piece of lace, and I'm going to try to get that to stick underneath the tea stain paper without too much trouble, without it being too much bulk. What are the chances that my glue is? The chances are 0. All right, here we go. All right, just gonna fold this in half. I'm using, for this part, I'm using the Beacons Zip Dry. It's one of my Art glitter and this zip dry glue are my two favorites. I find, maybe your experience is different, I find that art glitter glue is absolutely terrible on lace. This is probably polyester lace. It works fine on cottons and things like that, but will not stick, or at least not quickly, won't stick this type of lace. But the zip dry really works well. So that is what we use here. All right, so I've stuck that down. And I'm hoping that I can glue the paper on top here without making too much of a bump. We will see how that works out for me. All right, so next I am going to glue up the back of this tag. Actually, I'll just keep using the zip dry since it's all ready to go. I covered my table in craft paper today. I'd been recording just on the blank tabletop, but I didn't love the color as a background for videos. It's just a sort of a pale green, but I just didn't like how it was lighting and looking like in video. So I thought this craft paper might work. You know, that is to be determined once I come back and watch this footage. But we'll see. I have a bright pink mat that I use on my craft table, which I absolutely love, but it films horribly. So that is why I don't just film over the top of my mat like most people do. All right, so now this is ready to cut down, and we will have a fantastic journaling space covered with this beautiful flower. I am being very careful not to cut into this lace, folding it down, and I'm cutting through 3 layers of paper here, which will become our trifold. Great. And then cut this. Great. And then cut down the side without cutting the fold. Nice. All right. And there we go. That's gorgeous. I love that. That's going to be a beautiful writing spot. What I'm going to do is ink this up. I might also ink up the individual papers, and just to give it a finished look. I'll have the sewing machine out, like I said, but I just don't feel like this one, I mean, I could sew it. I just don't think it needs it. I kind of like it how it is. Get those edges inked up. I think that looks great. We can get the rest of the folds and individual pages inked up. The lace has already been tea dyed, so it's got a nice patina to it. And then, this edge is coming up a bit, so we will glue that down. There we go. want one of these butterflies. Let's see. Oh, I kind of love that. All right, let's cut down a butterfly. I kind of don't want to fussy cut the whole thing, but I could do, let me get my small shears out, my small snips, and give it a quick fussy cut. All right, that doesn't look too terrible. All right, I'm going to round up these edges just a bit. Maybe he wants to live there. All right, let's get this inked up. Great. All right, let's glue this down, and we will cover up that, disguise that bump from the there we go. Get this ticket glued up. Oops. I feel like I'm very off. There we go. Put that there. All right, and that just helps disguise that bump just a bit. And now we have a trifold tag with a colorful front that has been covered in tissue paper, and that gives a bunch of journaling spot. Go right into a pocket in your journal. Excellent. So let's move on to the next one after I clear this space. All right. Okay. Moving on to our last ticket, or tag rather. This one I scuffed up, like I said, with just an emery board. I scuffed up the back as well. It gives it a nice sort of aged look already, and also it brings down the glossiness so that we can add some ink, which is what I'm going to do. I am going to mask part of this to give it a little bit more visual interest, and I think that I want to mask it right along here. Let's say that should work pretty well. Okay, I'm going to use walnut stain instead of vintage photo. I'm going to take a little bit darker just to make sure it shows up on this sort of already dark background. And so what I'm going to do, so this is just a piece of paper that I had already sort of purposefully torn so it would have this interesting edge on it. And I'm just going to ink up the tag along the edge so that it picks up that torn look, and it's going to come out with a sort of very sort of cool stained look to it. All right, are you ready for the reveal? And let's look. Well, it doesn't show up quite distinctly on this darker, but you could see it right along here. You can see that sort of tagged edge, the masked edge of it, just to give it a bit more of an aged, grungy look. I'm also going to take this little razor tool and I'm going to really fuss up these edges. Get in there. And then after I do this, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to glue part of that French book on the back of this as well, and age up that as well, and have it be sort of an overall vintagey, grungy look to it. So let's find one of those French book pages. I want one of the ones that has some text on it. Maybe this one looks, decisions. Oh, let's do this one. Le Tigre. All right, so let's take this and we'll glue it here. All right. And then after we glue this down, I'm going to, again, rough up the edge, ink up the edge, and give it a sort of aged look. Let's smash that down. Yeah, the ink is sticking nicely to the sanded finish. Oh, I stuck it to the side. I didn't mean to, and that is fine. Turned out okay. Great. All right, we'll cut it out. This actually turned out fine, even though this was not the side of the page I had been looking at. Great. So I'm going to, again, take the razor tool and scuff up some of these edges. And then we will, I think I will try that masking technique on the book page as well, where it will more show up a bit more. All right, so let's do that. And with this walnut stain, it will be very noticeable. So let's keep it up here. Great. And we will just crunch, 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 get a little lighter as we move away from the masking area. Boom. Oh, I love how that looks. It looks like something was spilled on it. And I'm going to do this color just to add a little bit more interest and dimension. A little bit out of frame. There we go. There we go. Love it. And I can apply the razor finish a little bit to these book page as well. Help give it that more vintagey look. Now I'm going to do the edges all around. All right. And we really darken up these book page edges, and then also just give it a little smudgy wash of color, and then do the same in the front. Really darken up some of these whiter spots in this page. It's amazing how much just sanding down that glossy photo gave it a nice aged look. I think it looks awesome. And then now that we've got the 8 edges done all around, I'm just going to give it a little bit of wash of walnut stain down here as well. All right. Nice aged, grungy look. I think I will get out some of my favorite, there it is, faux cellophane, faux aged cellophane, and do a little wraparound piece, again, just to give it some interest and dimension, and just because I'm obsessed with this tape and love to use it whenever I can. Cut that out, and then make the edges serrated looking with my tiny pinking shears, which also work really great on stamp edges. If that's something you're into, I highly recommend getting a small tooth pair of pinking shears. I'm just going to wrap that around. Oh, I love how that looks. Great. Really pretty. All right, let's put a tag and maybe some crinkle seam binding to finish this off. Let's see. Am I just going to eyeball this center and get it wrong? Maybe. Let's do right about a little higher. Right about there. Great. And I have some crinkle binding. Am I going to sew this? I could, but now that I put the tape on it, can I sew it over the tape? Should I sew it over the tape? Maybe I will. Give it just a bit more of a finished look. So I'm going to sew this one and the first tag we did, and I will come back and show all 3 tags. Okay, and here they are, our final looks at our tags that we've created from this garden book, this very contemporary book. We made some vintage-ish looking tags, starting with this one, covered in sewing paper. I sewed around the edge, added a seam binding top to it with a little bit of aged cellophane, and this is where we had added the wallpaper that I got at the thrift store. I added a bit more inking and edging using that masking technique. It turns out looking a little bit like water stained wallpaper, which is kind of a cool look. Okay. And I like the look of the wallpaper overall. Some of that bubbling I saw initially has gone away. It's not bubbled at all as far as I can see. So that's good. It must have been the glue interacting with the paste momentarily, but it has calmed down. So that's great. I'm very pleased with that. I do like how the wallpaper, and this is just coincidence, it does look like I almost matched the prints there. The leaves do sort of continue, so that's good. Anyway, I might not choose to do a wallpaper on wallpaper pocket if I were to do this again. But overall, I'm pleased with how this turned out and how this looks. Next up is this version that I did with just plain white tissue paper instead of sewing paper. When you last saw it, I had added the butterfly and this ticket to sort of cover up where I'd glued in this lace tab top. I added a couple of more butterflies to the front, added another bit of lace down here, and I also stamped a butterfly on the back just to tie it all together. This is a great trifold writing spot, can go right into your journal, into a pocket, or as a standalone item. And then lastly, this is the paper from the garden book that I had scuffed up with an emery board. Then I inked over it a bit. I made a bit of a masking area here. It didn't show so well on this dark print, but a little bit, you can see it there. Added some of the cellophane. I stitched around it. On the back, we have the French book that I acquired at the thrift store. I inked it up. Again, I masked it and added a bit of cellophane and a crinkly seam binding bow. So there they are. You can see the contrast between those tags and how they appear in the original book. Quite a difference. So again, if you have a glossy full color photographs that you would like to tamp down a bit, I would recommend any of these tactics, these techniques in your journal making. Thank you for coming along and checking out my thrift market finds, my thrift store finds. And I hope to talk to you again on the channel. Thank you. Bye.